Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Zhang. Welcome back to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. Last week was a replay of the very first episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where I talked about my personal journey that led to creating this podcast. This week, I thought I'd talk about the last 4 years of my life, what has changed and what has stayed the same. To me, the purpose of life is personal growth. Currently, my deepest work is to understand myself and what I want out of life, what makes for an ideal life, and how I can get closer to that ideal life with the choices I make. When I started this podcast in 2022, I was in between physician jobs. I had signed a contract to start work for a new practice in September. I had left my last physician job without the next job lined up. So I was both free, having a lot of time on my hands, but I was also working hard to build my life and money coaching business. My husband is a school teacher, so he had the summer off. I decided to spend a good portion of that summer in Europe. I had signed the new contract for my new job in May and bought flights to spend 5 weeks in Europe soon after signing. That meant even when I started this podcast, I had to batch a number of episodes to accommodate for that travel. The job I started that September was the beginning of my working a week at a time and traveling from my home in Ohio to my job in Illinois in order to work. I started off working every other week for the most part, sometimes shifting weeks due to conferences, other commitments, or travel. It was a great job. I was working in a physician-owned practice that treated everyone well. I had great staff, which meant I had great staff support, and I had great colleagues. I was doing 100% acroplastics and felt like I was really well compensated for the work I did. I didn't mind flying to my new job or living in a hotel. During my off weeks, I worked at coaching clients, worked on this podcast, and worked on my coaching business in general. I also did much more public speaking, giving financial talks, both virtually and in person, to residency and fellowship programs, as well as speaking at conferences and for medical societies. I spoke at the American Academy of Ophthalmology, WCICon, SoMeDocs, online conferences, and the Physician Accelerator Summit, as well as the Illinois Medical Society. Later on, I also started doing some locums work, taking general ophthalmology call for a local hospital in Ohio, which gave me some 1099 income to write off expenses, since my other job in Illinois was actually a W-2 job. Sadly, that wonderful Illinois job did not last. When I started working at that job, there was actually another oculoplastic surgeon who flew in from Florida and worked every other week, basically the weeks I wasn't working. We were essentially job sharing. He was towards the end of his career and was looking at selling his own private practice. His wife had been his practice manager and she was done working. He ended up selling to private equity, which meant that he could no longer work part-time at another practice. I ended up inheriting all the patients he had seen and signed up for surgery, and soon my waitlist for surgery was almost a year out. The practice asked me to come work full-time, which would include moving to Illinois, and that was a non-negotiable for me. I had decided at that point that I was not moving for a job. I ended up staying at that Illinois job just long enough to finish out all the surgeries for the patients I had seen. I went on another job search and was lucky enough to get an offer from another physician-owned practice to work 2 weeks a month in South Dakota. This practice had an oculoplastic surgeon in his early 60s who, at one point in his career, was the only fellowship-trained oculoplastic surgeon in the entire state. He was very busy and had a long wait time for patients to be able to see him and have surgery. I started at this new practice soon after I stopped working at my prior practice in Illinois. Things overall seemed like they were going well at this practice. So it came to a complete surprise to me when 2 months before my contract was set to renew, I was told that they were not renewing my contract. It also seemed to be a surprise to other people in the office. A physician that was an associate and not yet a partner had thought I had decided not to renew the contract when word had spread that I was leaving. The practice manager there said that she was as surprised as I was when I talked to her. I wasn't given any reason for my dismissal other than the fact that healthcare is a tough field. I'm left to believe that there was just not a large enough demand for oculoplastics in that practice. One of the other ophthalmology groups in the area had hired an oculoplastic surgeon who had started about a year before I started, so that may have contributed to the decreased demand and them not needing to have a part-time oculoplastic surgeon. I think they may have also been able to hire an oculoplastic surgeon to come after that person finished their fellowship. I didn't mean to spend a lot of time detailing all my physician work in the last 4 years, but of course, this has greatly affected what I've been doing these last 4 years. I have found that I really enjoy practicing oculoplastics part-time, and that I don't mind traveling in order to work in an environment with good staff support and where I'm treated well. At this point, I've signed another contract that will start this coming September, leaving me time to travel this summer. Speaking of travel, travel is my passion. I love having new experiences and experiencing different cultures and foods. When I worked full-time as a physician, vacation was limited to typically 5 weeks a year. I have found that I like to travel a lot more than that. I prefer to travel 2 to 3 weeks at a time, 3 to 4 times a year. The first summer I started this podcast, when I traveled for 5 weeks, my husband was ready to go home after 3 weeks, and I did feel ready to go home after 5 weeks. We spent that summer visiting Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. In the last few years, I've really become more intentional when choosing where to travel. My husband and I finally made it to Antarctica on a trip that was postponed from 2020 due to COVID. We also traveled to Rhode Island and North Dakota, the last 2 states I hadn't yet visited, so now I've gone to all 50 states of the United States. Seeing the Aurora Borealis has been a big bucket list item for me since I was young. And 2024 to 2025 is a time where there was a lot of increased solar activity, which created a lot of intense auroras. If you recall, there's even been a time where people have been able to see the Aurora Borealis in the continental United States, as south as Texas. I ended up going to Fairbanks, Alaska twice to see the aurora. The first time I went with my sister's family, and then I loved it so much that I wanted to go see more of the aurora, so my husband and I went during his spring break. I also decided to head to Utah on my own in order to see a total annular eclipse in 2023. As luck would have it, I was actually able to see the total solar eclipse from my front doorstep in 2024, since totality passed right above my home. My husband and I have traveled all around the globe in the last 4 years, not only sightseeing, but also indulging in incredible experiences. We took a helicopter up to a glacier to go ice climbing in New Zealand, as well as swimming with wild dolphins while we were at South Island. We went gorilla trekking in Rwanda and witnessed the Great Migration in Serengeti National Park in Tanzania. We hiked to an erupting volcano in Iceland and actually felt the heat of the lava as it came out of the earth. That was really incredible. We've gone close and personal with a hawk when we did a hawk walk at the magnificent Ashford Castle. I even was able to finally coordinate a family trip with my parents and my sister's family to Taiwan, where my parents grew up. Aside from vacation, I've also traveled a lot to attend conferences, retreats, and even to visit friends. In 2022, I attended 6 different conferences and retreats, some for which I was a speaker. I've also traveled as far as Bora Bora and to Portugal, specifically to attend retreats made for women physicians. I've gone to Honduras for mission trips in 2024 and again in 2026. I made trips to visit friends in South Carolina, Colorado, and California including attending my 25th college reunion. I know for many that the COVID pandemic was an isolating time. For me, it was a time where I ended up connecting with a lot of online communities, such that when COVID ended, I actually made the effort to really meet a lot of the people that I had originally met online and see them in person by attending different conferences. Some of the communities I'm talking about are the life coaches I trained with at the life coach school or met during that process. There were also a lot of physician entrepreneurs, as well as physician real estate investors I met in different online communities. Something I've learned is that it really takes regular contact and connection to keep relationships strong. As life gets busy, who are the people you want to make sure you keep reaching out to? The research is clear. Relationships and connections with other people is a key component to a long as well as a happy life. It's also worthwhile to spend the extra effort and money to go to events to connect with people. Originally, I wasn't planning on going to my 25th college reunion. It sort of crept up on me, and generally, I plan my travel months ahead of time. Then a classmate I met up with in Taiwan asked if I was going to the reunion. She wasn't going, so it was easy to say that I didn't think I was going. In fact, I thought it might actually be at the same time as the mission trip to Honduras that was going on. But then another friend asked whether or not I was going, and she said that she was going. And so I looked up the date and realized that the reunion actually was the week after I was in Honduras. Another friend who was on the fence about going then reached out to me to see if I was going. Then I ended up asking another friend if they thought about going. All this creates momentum, and in the end, I did make the decision to go, and I'm really glad I did. I got to see people that I hadn't seen since graduation, and even though it had been 25 years, it was really great to catch up. I also got to spend time with friends that I had seen within the last few years, but always loved to spend more time with. Something that I found, I think part of my ideal life is spending that time maintaining the relationships that I truly value. Another thing that I'm finding as I continue to strive to create my ideal life is that having some structure really helps to have a scaffold, and then I can plan around that scaffold. Working part-time as a physician really gives me that structure. With work, there's a time where I'm seeing patients and doing surgery, and that really fills my day. My work as a life coach really has a lot less structure, although I will say I have full autonomy to decide what to do with my time. That autonomy means I really have to spend the time to plan and decide what I want to do and what I want to accomplish in order to actually use that time wisely and be productive. Another change I've made over the last 4 years is that I've greatly decreased the amount of meat I consume. At home, we now eat mostly pescatarian. Many of our meals are now vegetarian. 4 years ago, I would say that we ate meat pretty much at every dinner. This change started after I read the book, How Not to Die. But it was also after talking to many women physicians about plant-based diets. When I travel internationally, anything goes, and I will eat just about anything. At home, while we sometimes eat meat other than seafood, that happens more often when we're eating out, and I've been really trying to stick more towards a plant-based diet at home. I don't know if it's really making me healthier, but I do know it's much better for the environment. On another topic, I've always been someone who loves to work with my hands. This is probably what led me to choose to be a surgeon as well. I love to create and make something. I think of myself as a crafty person more than I really think of myself as an artist. Over the years, I spent time sewing, crocheting, making jewelry, sketching, painting, practicing calligraphy, working with glass, and making pottery. I will say that I was not doing much crafting at all when I started this podcast. I suppose this podcast, as well as creating videos I post on YouTube, took over that time, as well as just working on my coaching business. I was really absorbed in learning about business, as well as marketing and selling, and so I kind of let crafting fall to the wayside. Last fall, I started doing art again, And in January, I started taking pottery classes. I think there's a season to what I do from a creative standpoint, and I think I'm moving towards a season where I'm more devoted to pottery. I love working with my hands again, and that's really not something I do so much when I'm podcasting. That is to say, I haven't decided how often I will continue to make new podcast episodes for the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. If you love this podcast, then now, more than ever, I would like to hear from you. What do you want to hear about on this podcast? What topics are you interested in? What do you specifically like about this podcast? What would you like changed? I really think about this podcast as a service that I put out into the world. And so I would really like to hear what you, the listener, value in this podcast. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. And again, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to me by sending an email to growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. Have a wonderful week, and I hope you too are moving towards living your ideal life. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you.